single dad gives food to a homeless old man, not knowing he's a millionaire. The rain had been falling since before sunrise, turning the city streets into long mirrors of broken light, and for Daniel Harper, that morning felt like the perfect reflection of his life, cold, uncertain, and stretched thin in every direction. He stood at the edge of a small food stall, clutching a paper bag that held the last warm meal he could afford for the day, unaware that this simple act, born from exhaustion and kindness, would soon change everything he believed about fate, struggle, and the quiet power of compassion. Before the story goes any further, take a moment to pause. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that even the smallest good deed can echo louder than wealth or power, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more real, heart-touching stories like this one. Daniel was a single father in his early 30s, the kind of man who always looked a little older than his age because responsibility had settled on his shoulders far too early. 2 years earlier, his wife had passed away after a sudden illness, leaving him alone with their 6-year-old daughter, Emily, and a life that had instantly become heavier. Medical bills swallowed their savings, grief stole his sleep, and when the company he worked for downsized, Daniel found himself balancing part-time work, night shifts, and constant fear of not having enough. Every decision revolved around survival, rent, school supplies, groceries, each one demanding sacrifice. That morning, Daniel had just finished a long night shift unloading trucks at a warehouse. His back ached, his hands were rough and cracked, and his thoughts were already racing ahead to Emily, who would be waking up soon in their small apartment, probably waiting for him to come home with breakfast like he promised. He stopped by the stall because it sold the cheapest hot meals in the area, and even though the coins in his pocket barely covered one serving, he needed the strength to make it through the day. As he waited, he noticed an old man sitting against the brick wall nearby, wrapped in a thin, torn coat that did little to protect him from the rain. The man's beard was white and untrimmed, his face marked by deep lines that spoke of years far harder than Daniel's own. His hands trembled slightly as he tried to keep them warm, and his eyes followed every passerby with a quiet, tired hope that someone might notice him. Daniel tried to look away. He had learned, painfully, how easy it was to be pulled under by other people's needs when his own life was already fragile. He told himself he couldn't afford to care today, that Emily came first, that kindness didn't pay bills. But the image of the old man lingered, refusing to fade, and something deep inside Daniel stirred, something that reminded him of who he used to be before loss hardened his choices. When the vendor handed him the paper bag, warm and fragrant, Daniel hesitated. He thought of Emily's smile, of how she trusted him completely, and of how this meal might leave him hungry later. Yet he also thought of his father, long gone, who had once told him that a man's worth was measured not by what he had, but by what he gave when he had little. That memory pressed against his chest like a weight. Without allowing himself time to rethink it, Daniel turned and walked toward the old man. He placed the bag gently beside him and nodded, offering a small, apologetic smile. He didn't wait for thanks, didn't explain, didn't even stop to hear a response. He simply turned away and walked back into the rain, feeling both lighter and more afraid than before. The day unfolded slowly, marked by small struggles and quiet victories. Daniel picked up Emily from school, listened to her excited stories, and pretended not to notice how empty his stomach felt. That night, as he lay awake staring at the ceiling, he wondered if he had made a foolish decision. Kindness felt good, but fear whispered that good feelings didn't keep the lights on. He pushed the thought aside and focused on the steady rhythm of Emily's breathing from the next room. Days passed, and life continued in its relentless pattern. Daniel worked, worried, and hoped, often in that order. He never saw the old man again and assumed he never would. To him, it had been a small moment, already fading into memory, just another drop in a sea of struggle. Then, one afternoon, everything shifted. Daniel came home to find a black car parked outside his apartment building, sleek and unfamiliar against the peeling paint and cracked concrete. A well-dressed man stood near the entrance, checking his watch. Daniel's first instinct was anxiety. Had something happened? Was there a problem? He hurried inside, heart pounding. The man approached him calmly and asked his name. When Daniel confirmed, the stranger explained that someone wished to see him and requested a few minutes of his time. Confusion washed over Daniel as he followed the man to the car, his mind racing through every possible explanation, none of them making sense. They drove across town, away from the worn-down neighborhoods Daniel knew so well, toward streets lined with trees and quiet elegance. Finally, the car stopped in front of a large, understated building. Inside, the air felt different, cleaner, calmer, heavy with a kind of confidence Daniel wasn't used to. That was when he saw him. The old man from the street sat comfortably in a chair, clean-shaven, dressed in simple but expensive clothes. His posture was straight, his eyes sharp and alive in a way Daniel hadn't seen before. For a moment, Daniel thought he was mistaken, that grief and exhaustion were playing tricks on him. But then the man looked at him and smiled, and recognition struck like lightning. The old man explained his story slowly, deliberately. He was a self-made millionaire who had lost his family years ago and grown disillusioned with wealth and the people around him. To understand the world again, to see who people truly were without the influence of money, he had chosen to live on the streets for a time. It was a test, not of others, but of himself, to see if kindness still existed when there was nothing to gain. He spoke of how most people walked past him, some with pity, some with discomfort, many with indifference. He described the hunger, the cold, and the loneliness, and how those experiences stripped life down to its rawest form. And then he spoke of Daniel. Of a tired man with almost nothing, who still chose to give. The millionaire didn't offer charity or pity. Instead, he offered opportunity. He told Daniel that kindness like his deserved more than survival, it deserved a chance to grow. He offered to help Daniel start a small business, something sustainable, something that would give him stability and dignity. No strings, no publicity, just support. Daniel's first reaction was disbelief, followed by fear. It all felt too big, too sudden. He thought of Emily, of the responsibility he carried, and of the risk of trusting something that seemed unreal. But as he listened, he realized that this wasn't about money. It was about being seen. For the first time in years, someone had noticed his struggle and valued his character more than his circumstances. With time, Daniel accepted. The months that followed were challenging in new ways. Learning, failing, trying again. But this time, struggle came with hope instead of despair. Daniel built a small food business, inspired by the very act that had changed his life. He focused on simple, affordable meals and quietly set aside food each day for those who couldn't pay. Emily watched her father grow stronger, more confident, and her laughter returned to their home like sunlight after a storm. The millionaire stayed mostly in the background, checking in occasionally, never asking for recognition. For him, the reward wasn't profit, it was proof that goodness still moved the world in quiet, powerful ways. As Daniel stood one evening watching his daughter do her homework at the counter of their small but thriving shop, he reflected on how close he had been to giving up. How easily he could have chosen fear over kindness. That single moment, that one decision made in the rain, had altered the course of his life, not because of luck, but because compassion had a way of opening doors that force never could. Before this story ends, I want to ask you something from the heart. If this story touched you, if it reminded you that kindness still matters even when life feels unfair, please like this video, share it, and subscribe. Your engagement helps stories like this reach people who need hope the most. And just before we close, I have a special request for you. Please comment below with the word kindness and share a small act of good you've done or witnessed. Your story might inspire someone more than you realize. Daniel never forgot the lesson he learned. That day on the rainy street taught him that generosity isn't measured by how much you give, but by what it costs you to give it. And sometimes, the universe listens most closely when your hands are empty but your heart is full.